next block that we have coming up. LD, there's a puzzle, there's an enigma, there's a riddle to be solved. In that clip, I think it's the second one. I'm looking for the guy who talks right before Ted Cruz. So if you fast forward in the AP, the Associated Press, Trump shooting hearing live, Secret Service testimony, in that clip, just look for Ted Cruz doing his 5 minutes and go to the guy before him. Because I think that's where they documented the comms breakdown and how they did have, like, they have radios that should have worked that day, but they didn't. And they had a drone that should have worked that day, but didn't. But Crooks's drone flew just fine. Like, we're going to get to some of those, but that was the only clip I didn't isolate specifically. And I just had a note. It's the guy before Cruz. I think his name's maybe Scott, Senator Scott, possibly. So sorry about that. All right. So we're going to kick off with John Kennedy grills FBI over whether or not they shot him. No, it's a different John Kennedy. Sorry about that. Whether a bullet really struck Trump, because there has been claims that it was teleprompter glass. Okay. Teleprompters don't look like they got shot. So next, I would dismiss as arbitrary, by the way, after that. Right. And I would question whoever's trying to tell me that, by the way. The FBI director said that at the hearing last week. So maybe we got questions like, what's going on with that guy? We'll look into Director Wray soon enough here. Yeah, I'll leave it there. All right. And then we're going to go to Trump shooting hearing live. We're going to look maybe at Senator Scott. And then we're going to go to brutal. Ted Cruz has epic clash with acting Secret Service director. And then Josh Hawley does the same thing. And then Ron Johnson clears the bases. He's the cleanup hitter in this media block. They're going to be talking to this guy, Ronnie. He's the new Secret Service director. The Cheeto lady stepped down. And now this guy who worked for her and probably had decision-making power over that whole scene is now in charge. And is he going to take responsibility and buck stops here, like she said? Or is he going to be like, oh, local police left their post? Maybe not true, by the way. So there's lying under oath, according to various sources, with the FBI deputy director. Forget his last name. They asked him several times. Doesn't matter. Abbate. And then the Secret Service new acting director. So let's go to the usual Congress critters, and let's see what I have to say about this in the hearing.
Senator Kennedy, you're recognized for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Abbate, am I saying your name right?
Yes, Senator, thank you.
You are the Deputy Director of the FBI, is that correct?
Yes, Senator.
Is there any doubt in your mind or in the collective mind of the FBI that President Trump was shot in the ear by a bullet fired by the assassin Crooks?
Senator, there is absolutely no doubt in the FBI's mind whether former President Trump was hit with a bullet and wounded in the ear. No doubt, there never has been.
Okay.
I've been part of this investigation since the very beginning, and that has never been raised.
You're sure?
Yes.
It wasn't a space laser?
No.
It wasn't a murder hornet?
Absolutely not.
It wasn't Sasquatch?
No, Senator.
It was a bullet?
It was a bullet, Senator. 100%.
Fired by Crooks?
Yes, sir.
That hit President Trump in the ear and almost killed him?
100%, Senator.
Okay. Glad we cleared that up. I don't want to get off the subject here. Did the FBI just settle 2 lawsuits, one wholly, one in part, in which the FBI agreed to give Peter Strzok $1.2 million and Ms. Lisa Page $800,000?
It's my understanding, Senator, that the Department of Justice was involved in that, not the FBI.
The FBI had nothing to do with it?
There may have been consultation with our general counsel's office, but...
Does the FBI have to sign off on it?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't believe so, but I would want to confirm that.
I would like you to... This would be the same Lisa Page who said to Mr. Strzok, quote, Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right. To which Mr. Strzok said, quote, no, he won't. We will stop it. That's the Peter Strzok and Lisa Page I'm talking about. I need to know if the FBI signed off on this lawsuit.
We will get that answer for you, Senator.
And then I need to know who signed off on it. Did you sign off on it?
I absolutely did not and would never sign off on something
Did Chris
like that.
Wray sign off on it, the settlement?
I don't believe he did.
Okay. Did you don't know what?
Nor do I think he would have.
You need to let me know who signed off on this, if anyone at the FBI. So it was Merrick Garland who agreed to do this. Is that right?
Senator, I do not know.
Well, hell,
who
somebody
signed
had
off
to
on that.
agree to it. I've settled a lawsuit before. The client's got to agree to it. You're the client. All right.
Understood. I'm gonna direct in to the Department of Justice to answer
All right.
those questions.
Get me that information if you would. Mr. Rowe, help me understand this. The assassin Crooks fired his first shot, as I understand it, at 6:12 p.m. He was about 150 yards away. It's been reported that the snipers, the government snipers, saw him on the roof 20 minutes before. Not 2 minutes, 20 minutes before. Is that correct?
Senator, that's the first time I'm hearing this. That is not correct based on the information I have right now, sir.
Well, when did the FBI snipers see him on the roof?
Just Secret Service sniper, sir. I mean,
I'm sorry, you're right.
That's
Secret
an insult,
Service
sir.
sniper.
No, I'm just kidding.
I understand. I apologize. When did the Secret Service snipers, one of whom ultimately shot the assassin Crooks, first see him on that roof?
So, sir, immediately upon the shots being fired, our snipers.
I know that, but when did they first see him? You got a guy lying on a roof.
Yeah.
You got snipers in an elevated position. They can look down on the roof. You got the guy lying there with a gun pointed at the former president of the United States. They shot him. Good for them. He's now dead as Woodrow Wilson, and that's a good thing. I'm sorry. God forgive me, but it's a good thing. But when did the snipers first see him?
As soon as he presented himself as a target and a threat to the president, sir.
And when was that?
He fires initially a volley. I believe it was 3 shots.
No, he fired at 6:12 p.m.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the first shot.
So within 15.5 seconds of the first shot, he's
here's what
neutralized.
people are asking.
Yes, sir.
He was up. Crooks was up there. The snipers at some point saw him.
Yes, sir.
Our snipers, because they killed him.
Yes, sir.
When did they first see him? It has been reported repeatedly that the snipers first saw him 20 minutes before. That's more than a quarter in an NFL football game.
Yes, sir.
You don't know the answer?
So I do know the answer, sir. I'm telling you that.
What is the answer?
No,
When
they did not see him. They only
never saw him.
No, sir. They did not.
How could they not see the guy? How could they not see him? They're in an elevated position. They're checking rooftops. They're looking around.
Yes,
There's
sir.
2 government snipers. How could they not see him? There he was, big as Dallas, lying there with a gun, pointed at the president. How could they not see him?
I believe he was obscured by that roof, sir. He did not pop up.
The roof is flat with ridges.
He's below the line where they would have seen him, sir. There is he did have concealment. I'm not going to say it's cover. He did have concealment, and then ultimately gets into firing position and fires. And within 15.5 seconds of his first shot, he's neutralized.
All right, I've gone way over. You gentlemen need to answer these questions. Mr. Deputy Director.
It was never relayed over to us.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator Hawley. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Rowe, can you put your first poster, your first demonstrative back up?
Please put A up, please.
Let's make sure everybody can see it. This is the photograph, I believe, that you took, your team took of the roof, the AGR roof. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so from this vantage point, as the law enforcement who are in those windows, as they look left, they should be able to see the shooter clearly there on the AGR second floor roof. My question is, why is there not a Secret Service counter sniper on that roof?
So, Senator, when we post up, our methodology is to look at things that can see in on our protectees so that they can provide that coverage.
But why is there not a Secret Service counter sniper there with clear line of sight? That roof has a clear line of sight to the former president. Why didn't you put a Secret Service counter sniper there?
The Secret Service's counter sniper role is to neutralize those threats that are looking in on us from where the protectee is, not necessarily
you think maybe you might want to revise that protocol in light of what happened here?
They were protecting the principal, and I think
the principal got shot.
I understand that, sir.
So do you think you might want to revise the protocol? Let me ask you this. Who was the lead site agent who made the decision to leave the AGR building completely outside of the security perimeter? Who was that?
Senator, I cannot give you that name. This person is operational. They're still doing investigations. They're still doing protective visits.
Have they been relieved of duty?
Senator, they have not been relieved of duty.
I know their name, by the way. Why have they not been relieved of duty?
They are still cooperating, not only being interviewed by the FBI, but also by our Office of Professional Responsibility. And we will let the facts of the mission assurance and any further investigations play out.
Isn't the fact that a former president was shot, that a good American is dead, that other Americans were critically wounded, isn't that enough mission failure for you to say that the person who decided that building should not be in the security perimeter probably ought to be stepped down?
Senator, I think you're using the word decided, and I think we need to allow the investigation play out to include.
So who did make the decision then? If it wasn't the lead site agent, who made the decision not to put that in the security perimeter?
Senator, you're zeroing in on one particular agent. I want to find out exactly what was the entire decision process. So I think I want to be neutral and make sure that we get to the bottom of it and interview everybody in order to determine if there was more than one person who perhaps exercised bad judgment.
Well, sure. My question is, why don't you relieve everybody of duty who made bad judgment? So, yeah, you're right. I am zeroing in on somebody. I'm trying to find somebody who's accountable here. And you're telling me that the person who made the decision not to include this in the perimeter has not been relieved of duty. What about the person who's in charge of the interoperability of radio frequencies between local law enforcement and Secret Service? Has that person been relieved of duty?
No, Senator, because interoperability is a challenge, is a greater challenge than just one person. On that day, we had a counterpart system. It failed.
As the person who made the decision to send Donald Trump onto stage knowing that you had a security situation, has that person been relieved of duty?
No, sir, they haven't.
Has the person who decided not to pull the former president off of stage when you knew that, in your words, the locals were working a serious security situation, has that person been relieved of duty?
No, sir. Again, I refer you back to my original answer that we are investigating this through a mission assurance, and as opposed to zeroing in on one.
What more do you need to investigate to know
exactly what the decision-making process was? What more do you need to investigate
to know that there were critical enough failures that some individuals ought to be held accountable? I mean, what more do you need to know?
What I need to know is exactly what happened, and I need my investigators to do their job. And I cannot.
A lot of people didn't do their jobs.
I cannot put my thumb on the scale. Otherwise.
What do you mean put your thumb on the scale?
You're asking me, Senator, to completely make a rush to judgment about somebody failing. I acknowledge this was a failure of the Secret Service.
Is it not prima facie that somebody has failed? A former president was shot.
Sir, this could have been our Texas school book depository. I have lost sleep over that for the last 17 days, just like you have.
Somebody to hold them accountable.
I will tell you, Senator, that I will not rush to judgment, that people will be held accountable, and I will do so with integrity and not rush to judgment and put people
I can't believe
unfairly
that you
persecuted.
are unfairly persecuted.
Unfairly,
We've got people
sir.
who are
We
dead.
have to be able to have a proper investigation into this, Senator.
You said earlier that you've got to make sure that your protocols are followed, and unless there's a protocol violation, people wouldn't be disciplined. I would just say to you, I don't really care that much about your protocols. I think if your protocols don't provide for the fact that when a former president is shot, when an American is killed, when other rally-goers, innocent people who just showed up on the day, when they are shot at and critically wounded, if that isn't a protocol violation prima facie, you should revise your protocols.
Senator, I think this is where you and I agree. This was a failure, and we will get to the bottom of it.
Well, I hope you're going to do something about it. Let me ask you something else. The Real Clear Politics reports this morning that you were directly involved in denying additional security resources and personnel, including counter snipers, not just to this event, but over the last 2 years that President Trump's team repeatedly asked for these additional resources, and you personally were involved in denying them. Is that true?
Senator, as I stated earlier, that is not true.
So you never denied any resources to former President Trump's team?
No, not me. No, sir.
And you weren't involved in any of that? You were never involved in the decision making?
No, sir, I was not.
Let me ask you just one or two other things here quickly. Well, whistleblowers tell me that, in fact, law enforcement were stationed to be on that roof and that law enforcement abandoned their post because it was too hot. Is that accurate?
Senator, I have heard that as well. Again, they posted up inside. And I think moving forward, as I said earlier, we're going to ensure that state and local counter snipers are on roofs.
But do you know if someone was supposed to be on the roof? Do you know if someone was in fact? That's what the whistleblowers tells me. That may or may not be accurate. Do you know that to be the fact? Was somebody posted to the roof, local law enforcement or whomever?
I do not know that to be a fact.
Well, can I ask you why you don't know that?
Again, Senator, we are looking at this, and they should have been on that roof. And the fact that they were in the building is something that I'm still trying to understand.
I just want to express my frustration, Director, that 17 days or whatever it's been, that whistleblowers are telling us more than you are, and you don't know, you haven't ascertained if there was supposed to be law enforcement on the roof. That seems like a pretty basic fact. I'm also told that local law enforcement suppliers offered the Secret Service drones, and you declined them. Is that true?
So, Senator, one, I've been very transparent and forthcoming.
Your agency has not been transparent and forthcoming, so please, let's not go there.
I have been forthcoming, sir.
That remains to be seen. You've been on the job a few days. So far, you've fired nobody. Now, the drones.
Thank you,
Were
sir.
you offered drones?
Senator
So
Hawley.
there was an offer to fly a drone on that day.
And why did you deny it?
Again, I think the ability of local law enforcement to provide an asset, we probably should have taken them up on it if it was offered.
Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rowe, thank you for being here. I agree with what you said at the outset, that the individual Secret Service agents demonstrated remarkable personal courage, putting their bodies in between the line of sight of the shooter and the president. That being said, the bravery of the line agents is quite different from the decisions of Secret Service leadership. Secret Service leadership committed catastrophic security failures, indeed the worst security failures for the Secret Service since 1981. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rowe, thank you for being here. I agree with what you said at the outset, that the individual Secret Service agents demonstrated remarkable personal courage, putting their bodies in between the line of sight of the shooter and the president. That being said, the bravery of the line agents is quite different from the decisions of Secret Service leadership. Secret Service leadership committed catastrophic security failures, indeed the worst security failures for the Secret Service since 1981, since the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan. It is incumbent upon this committee to determine why those security failures happened. Just after the shooting, Secret Service put out an official statement from your spokesperson that says there's an untrue assertion that a member of the former president's team requested additional security resources and that those were rebuffed. This is absolutely false. In fact, we added protective resources and technology and capabilities as part of the increased campaign travel tempo. Was this tweet accurate?
With respect to Butler, Pennsylvania, it is accurate, sir.
It is accurate that the Trump team had not asked for additional security and had not been rebuffed.
If you're talking about Butler, Pennsylvania, all assets requested were approved. If you're talking about the media reporting of assets requested, there were times when assets were unavailable and not able to be filled, and those gaps were staffed with state and local law enforcement tactical assets.
So I'm reading from the Washington Post, July 20th, 2024. Secret Service said to have denied requests for more security at Trump events. The opening paragraph, top officials of the U.S. Secret Service repeatedly denied requests for additional resources and personnel sought by Donald Trump's security detail in the 2 years leading up to his attempted assassination, according to 4 people familiar with the requests. Is that right, that repeatedly the Trump detail asked for more resources and repeatedly Secret Service leadership turned that down?
That is not accurate, Senator. Assets are requested. There's a process that is made. And
how many requests did the Trump team or the Trump detail ask for?
I can get you that number in a queue.
You don't know now.
So I can speak to the ones that were reported in the Washington Post, and we can go through them if you like.
But you don't know how many requests there were.
In general, how many requests since 2021 that the former Trump detail has made a request for assets?
You've had 2 weeks. You had a spokesperson put something out that is false on its face. By the way, did you approve this statement when it went out?
I don't know if I did or didn't, Senator.
Has this spokesperson, is he still employed? Does he still have a job? He is still
employed, Senator.
So he lied on behalf of the Secret Service. He still has a job. Did your predecessor, the former director, did she approve this statement?
Senator, our comms team, they send out statements, they do deconflict them, and they put them out.
Did she approve this statement?
I don't know if she did or did not, Senator.
And you don't know if you did either?
I don't recall approving it, Senator.
Will you commit to provide this committee in writing every written request for additional resources from the Trump campaign or the Trump detail and every response from Secret Service?
Senator, I will commit to providing responses and getting you the information that you are seeking.
Let me ask you something. And who makes the decision to deny those requests? Did you make that decision?
Which requests? Are you talking about the ones that were in the Washington Post?
Yes.
So the process, sir, is that a detail will make a request for either staffing, technical assets, that is handled between the field office and the detail. It goes up to a logistics office between our
Okay, so there's a bureaucracy. Is there a decision maker?
It's not a bureaucracy, Senator.
Give me the
it's a
person
process.
that's a decision maker. Is there one?
Senator, it's a conversation. It's not just an absolute yay or nay.
So let me tell you what I believe. I believe that the Secret Service leadership made a political decision to deny these requests. And I think the Biden administration has been suffused with partisan politics. Did the same person who denied the request for additional security to President Trump also repeatedly deny the request for security to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose father was murdered by an assassin and whose uncle was murdered by an assassin? Did the same person make that decision?
Senator, what I will tell you is that Secret Service agents are not political.
Okay, you're not answering my question. But you know what? Leadership appointed by the president, leadership appointed by the president is political. I have a simple question, yes or no. Did the same person deny the Trump request that also denied the RFK request? That's a yes or no question.
Senator, that is not a yes or no question. One, there is a process for a candidate nominee to receive protection.
Does the buck stop anywhere? Does the buck stop anywhere?
Bipartisan process that the Hill participates.
It's a bicameral, bipartisan process. What cameral?
For a candidate,
you are not a Congress. You don't have a cameral.
Mr. Kennedy submitted a request that was referred over to the CPAC.
Okay, you're refusing to answer the question. Let me ask, because the failures on that day were catastrophic. By the way, is it true that on the day of the Butler event that Secret Service transferred agent from President Trump to the First Lady?
No, sir, that's not true.
That's been widely reported.
It's not true. There was one airport agent that actually went on the manpower request for the Trump detail. They handled the arrival at the airport.
What was the relative size of the Trump detail compared to the detail that is assigned to the President or the First Lady?
Senator, the former president travels with a full shift, just like the president.
What's so the exact same size? Is that your testimony that President Trump had the same size detail that President Biden has?
On the day of in Butler, the agents surrounding him, it is the same number of agents surrounding the president today. There is a difference between a sitting president who also not only
Hold on, you're using president in a way that is not clear. Is it your testimony that in Butler, Pennsylvania, Donald Trump had the same number of agents protecting him that Joe Biden has at a comparable event?
I'm telling you the shift, the close protection shift surrounding.
That's yes
what you
or no?
asked me, Senator, and I'm trying to answer it.
You are not answering it. Is it the same number of agents or not?
Senator, there is a difference between the sitting president of the United States.
Then what's the difference?
The difference?
2x, 3x, 5x,
National
10x?
Command Authority to launch a nuclear strike, sir.
I'm not
other assets
how many more
travel
agents?
With the president that the former president will
you are
not get.
refusing to
but
answer
the number
straight.
of Secret Service agents protecting him.
Stop interrupting me.
Go ahead,
You
Senator.
are refusing to answer clear and direct questions. I am asking the relative difference in the number of agents between those assigned to Donald Trump and those assigned to Joe Biden. I'm not asking why you assign more to Joe Biden. I'm asking, is the difference, is it 2x? Is it 3x? Is it 5x? Is it 10x?
Senator, I will get you that number so you can see it with your own eyes.
Senator Marshall, you're recognized for your questions.
Some of my other questions in writing.
Senator Johnson, recognized for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Acting Director Rowe, in our secure briefing last week, I made the point that if you don't want conspiracy theories to spread, you need to provide information. You know, I appreciate these photos today. These things could have been released literally within days, and a whole lot more information as well. So Congress needs to provide oversight. We don't have certain investigatory tools like you have, but what we can do is do interviews. So, Acting Director Rowe, did you receive our letter from July 25th requesting interviews with 13 individuals of the Secret Service?
We are in receipt of that letter, Senator.
And I don't, Deputy Director Abbate, have you seen that letter as well? Do you know who we're requesting interviews with?
Senator, I have not seen
Okay.
the letter.
Do you know whether those individuals submitted to interviews with the FBI, Acting Director Rowe?
We're in the process. Those employees are being interviewed if they have not already been interviewed, sir.
Are those interviews being transcribed?
The FBI interviews, sir?
Yes. Well, we have 302s on those.
Yes, Senator, we will.
Okay, when will Congress get those 302s? When will we get those transcriptions of those interviews?
Senator, I'll take that back and we'll get those to you as soon as possible.
So, Acting Director Rowe, when will those individuals be made available for Congress, for this committee to interview them?
Senator, we'll make them available.
How soon? Because memories are short. They can be influenced by events. We need these transcribed interviews as soon as possible.
We will get that done, sir.
Does the Secret Service use encrypted communications at events?
On our radio nets, we do, sir.
Are those memorialized? Are those saved?
The radio traffic from Butler, we did not have recordings.
Do you normally?
Not on the road outside of D.C. or outside of a presidential or vice presidential stop.
So communications between Secret Service agents will not be available like we've gotten the communications from local law enforcement.
I'm sorry, Senator.
So we're not going to be able to get those communications. You didn't save them.
No, sir.
Which is very unfortunate.
It is, sir. And moving forward, I've directed that we will now start recording those so that we will have them moving forward.
And by the way, I'm going to ask for a number of things at the very end to be entered in the record. But one of my preliminary findings is that the Secret Service did not attend the 9 o'clock briefing the day of the event. In your testimony, you said that a site briefing was conducted with Secret Service personnel and law enforcement partners supporting the event. Those both can't be true. So local law enforcement do not believe Secret Service was present at the 9 o'clock briefing. Were they or were they not?
So, Senator, with respect to the snipers that went on national television and gave an interview and said that they did not get a briefing from the Secret Service, they were supporting through mutual aid, and our personnel briefed the tactical team leader that was leading that element that was providing this counter sniper.
So, Acting Director Rowe, you said that the Secret Service provides explicit instructions to the locals. Were explicit instructions provided to cover the roof of the AGR building and locals just not follow it, or were those explicit instructions not provided?
It's my understanding what was communicated is that the locals had a plan and that they had been there before.
So an awful lot of the chatter on social media has to do with is there partisanship in the Secret Service, providing coverage for some individuals and none for others, about Secret Service coverage or additional coverage enhancements being denied. Was there ever requested additional coverage for Mar-a-Lago?
Senator, we have provided additional resources to the Mar-a-Lago residents.
Was coverage asked for and denied ever?
I'll have to research that, Senator, but I'm happy to tell you we have made significant investments since the former president has left office, over $4 million of technology, resources, and alarms.
Documents will come out eventually to make the point one way or the other. This is an important piece of information that Congress needs to have.
Senator, we'll make those available to you, the investments we've made.
There's a report today by Susan Crabtree of Real Clear Politics saying that you denied sniper coverage outside of driving distance of D.C. Is that true?
That is a false statement, sir.
Well, that is incorrect.
That is incorrect.
Okay. I mean, that's the kind of information you need to refute with documentation. Deputy Director Abbate, you said this is an assassination attempt and domestic terrorism. It's obviously assassination attempt. Why make the distinction? What is different about that?
We think it's important to cover all the possibilities here in the reality of what we're dealing with and what we've all seen, Senator. And we've learned lessons from the past. The tragic shooting at the baseball field was referenced here. We've learned the lesson from that. That was not opened properly, and we've made changes in the Bureau, and it's reflected here in terms of how this investigation is being approached with a completely open mind and inclusive of all the possibilities, including domestic terrorism.
I fear that makes the investigation potentially partisan. Mr. Chairman, I would like to request that my July 14th letter to Attorney General Garland, Mayorkas, and Wray be entered in the record. It asks for all kinds of information, documentation, asks a lot of questions. My preliminary findings of July 21st and July 23rd, including timelines, a bunch of questions as well, be entered in the record. And then our updated timeline dated today. This goes not only by minute, by second. And we will continue to update this timeline as more information becomes public. This is the way you do investigation. We need to find out literally second by second what happens. So the American public understands the truth.
Without objection.
Everybody's got a timeline except the FBI and Secret Service. How did crooks do that? I got a couple other questions. Why didn't Secret Service show up for that 9 a.m. briefing? They claim they did it a couple days before with the bosses of the guys, but it seems like if you're the Secret Service coming to work with local law enforcement, some of those law enforcement are wearing plain clothes, as Greg was. He wears a Nike green shirt and some pants. There's a bunch of undercover people. If you're the Secret Service coming to that event, how do you know those are your guys? If you don't meet with those guys, you might think Crooks on the roof is one of your guys. It seems like there are holes left open for this to happen that the deceased Mr. Crooks could never do for himself. And when you track down the who owned the building and then who's investigating the crime, there's a bunch of 3-letter agencies, including one called CFR, all up in that. So we're going to get into some other interesting evidence that's about to unfold. But before we do, let's talk a few things. Let's talk about a couple things. First off, let me take you here, because I just thought it was ironic. Ted Cruz did a really good job there. I thought it was cute how he and Josh Hawley, they called each other to wear the same outfits that day. They looked really well put together. And that Secret Service guy, Rowe, the acting director, I found him to be highly trustworthy. I think that's a strong young leader there for that agency. But I want to go to this because, once upon a time, there was a rumor that Rafael Cruz had something to do with the JFK assassination. And you'd see things like this and you'd try to look it up and you'd find, oh, I'm sorry, you can't find that. Now, we could go find it in the Wayback Machine. You guys know how to do that if you want to find it. Let's go to The Independent. Donald Trump implicated Ted Cruz's father in the JFK assassination. So Trump said it, but is it real? Was Rafael Cruz really part of maybe Operation 40 or Operation Mongoose or one of those things? You're not going to find out from reading this article, and you're not going to find out from reading Snopes, but they do have an entry on it. and they want you to say, don't even have to think about it. There's nothing to see there. So the allegation is that one of these guys is Rafael Cruz, and here's a picture, and there's some slight overlap, but there's a lot of reasonable doubt. So what this is an example of is Trump reading the National Enquirer, and just like that Hitler meme earlier, where it's not a real thing and somebody's Photoshop trolling, Trump took the headline to be something that was actionable, that he said it out loud in the public, the news got a hold of it, or maybe that's just like how they play the game, right? Maybe he's just cast to be the heel. My good friend Brett Fanot of the School Sucks Project, he was here this weekend, and we were talking about wrestling and Trump and politics, and how every wrestling match they need a heel, they need someone to come in to be hated, to be the Darth Vader in a situation, right? So that's a potential too. We have to keep our eyes open. And is, Trump doing something like accusing Rafael Cruz? Ted Cruz was his political opponent at the time, accusing Rafael Cruz of being associated with the JFK assassination. Is that Trump just trolling Ted Cruz, or did Trump really believe? Or did Trump somehow have information that Rafael Cruz worked for CIA, Operation 40, Operation Mongoose? Because those are the groups of people that were right around the Kennedy assassination, Bay of Pigs, the CIA Cubans. That was a real piece of history. And maybe Trump knows something about that, or maybe he knows nothing about that. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think, Scott?
I mean, I hadn't heard that particular factoid there, neither about the allegations of Cruz's father or Trump using that against him. That's pretty hilarious. I was just looking into it here real quick myself, but yeah, it's all just dark. It's all wrapped together like what's that actor's name whose dad was Woody Harrelson, right?
Yeah.
I mean that's pretty much proven, right, that he was involved in that, all right? Yeah,
Woody Harrelson's dad was a hitman. He had been convicted of getting caught for killing a judge. So a lot of people will be like, Woody's dad was, in prison for, killing a judge. But if you're an assassin, you kill many people. Sometimes you get caught, or sometimes somebody puts you in the box for that, time out. So that's a very interesting connection, because Woody was also in Natural Born Killers, which is Oliver Stone joint, and that had to play on like the media portrayal and aggrandizement of activities, and so there's a lot of interesting things just in that Woody Harrelson part. But I wanted to take you to, where's Operation 40? I thought I just typed in Operation 40 over here on the brain. There it is. I'm taking you there now. All right, Operation 40 is an Allen Dulles CIA Anglo-American establishment gig involving like the Bush family and Zapata oil and a whole bunch of interesting things. Connects right into that JFK assassination, connects into Barry Seal and David Atlee Phillips and Frank Sturgis and a whole bunch of other people that were involved. Also connects into Operation Mongoose, which is a whole assassination group of people working with the mafia and Johnny Roselli and people who were also implicated in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And when you go like, who had power over the investigation, the assassination, the cover up, who stood to benefit, like there's a long list of people, very powerful people. And, there might be some part of the empire and a couple of other sometime allies of ours who didn't want to see Jack Kennedy continue to exert his influence over the American population. They're like, that's our job to control them. How dare you? How dare you? We also have a clip from the JFK film, if we get to it later tonight, a little Dealey Plaza, because we got to get into shooting and ballistics and all these other things that we need to learn about.
Twice a year, I teach a course called Autonomy. It's a 12-week course. It teaches leadership, entrepreneur skills, executive skills, all these types of things that I saw were taken out of our education system in order to make the schooling or indoctrination system that we've all probably went through. And it has served us well enough to be interchangeable cogs in the machine of the globalists. But if we want a homestead, if we want write our own ticket, work from home job, work from anywhere type of situation, they're not exactly handing those out at the end of college. They give you a piece of paper and they're like, good luck. So reality is dropping us off here but the demands of reality are up here. So I created Autonomy to help people close that gap for themselves so they can level up their skills to the demands of the situations that life is putting in front of us presently. Life's demands of intellect and understanding precision and complexity are ever increasing. The schooling didn't prepare us for it. The media is not going to do anything but reinforce what schooling prepared us for. And so we're going to have to take a leadership position and take steps off the beaten path to kind of blaze our own trail in life. What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.